Hello, fellow Star Trek Online fans. This is the Doctor, and we are nearing our end of Star Trek Online Delta Rising news updates because we are quickly nearing the launch of Delta Rising. I am recording this video very early, 1 a.m. on Friday, October 10th. That means we are less than 5 days away from the launch of Delta Rising, which is October 14th. And that is just less than 5 days away. And that is a Tuesday. I am highly looking forward to that. There are not a lot of news things to mention today. In fact, I've only got about 2 tabs to go through for you today. So this is going to be a very short news update. There hasn't been a lot of news this week. I imagine Cryptic is very busy trying to get Delta Rising finished on time rather than just giving us a ton of news updates. There might be some more news updates, though, right before Delta Rising launches. So what I will do is on the 13th of October, which is Monday, if there have been any more news updates between now and then that are relevant to Delta Rising, I will make another video to go over what those new additions will be in Delta Rising. But so far, this is what we have this week, and there might even be some more added news updates later today because this is early morning on Friday, and sometimes they do have another blog post later on in the day on Friday. So if there are more things, I will cover that in the future right before Delta Rising launches. But today I've only really got 2 things to talk about. First of all, Harry Kim is coming to Star Trek Online. They have voiced him and recreated his character for Star Trek Online's Delta Rising. So let's read about that process. Updating Harry Kim's story. Let me zoom in for you so you can read along. There we go, nice and big. Updating Harry Kim's story. Harry was a little out of his depth when Voyager was first stranded in the Delta Quadrant. Fresh out of the Academy on his first ship assignment, Harry found himself separated from his family and home, without the prospect of ever seeing them again. During Voyager's journey, he never gave up hope, and he was one of the strongest proponents for doing whatever was needed to get back to Earth. Along the way, Harry grew as a Starfleet officer, showing intelligence, bravery, and ingenuity on multiple occasions. And just a sidestep here, Harry Kim was also never promoted inside the Star Trek Voyager. And even this next line says it, but the poor guy never got a promotion. And that is true. Harry Kim never got a promotion, which is sad. It's funny in a sad way, and it's been a thing about Voyager for as long as Voyager has aired. I mean, here's Harry Kim, who really did grow. We did see him grow. He was very green the beginning of Voyager, and he did become a better person over time. But they never gave the poor guy a promotion, whereas even the holographic Doctor got a promotion basically by becoming a command hologram, and other characters along the way kind of progressed. Poor Harry never got a promotion. When we first thought about where Harry's story went after Voyager, we knew he stayed in Starfleet. It was too much a part of who he was for him to leave it behind. But we also knew that the time in the Delta Quadrant took its toll on Harry, and he would choose assignments that kept him a little closer to home. He'd also want to advance in the ranks, using Captain Janeway and Tuvok as inspiration. Harry enjoyed his times in the captain's chair on the late shift in the Delta Quadrant, and he'd want more. After stints in security and as first officer of Starbase 11, Harry moved into command, eventually rising to the rank of captain and commander of the USS Rhode Island. Now, we saw this in an alternate future of Voyager, and so this makes sense that he would want that. He would want to become, go to command and be captain of the Rhode Island. When planning began for Operation Delta Rising, Admiral Tuvok knew that Harry's experience would be essential to the mission's success. However, Harry was initially reluctant. He'd built a good life for himself, and he didn't ever want to put his crew in the position he was once in, lost far away from home with no possibility of return. After some reflection, however, Harry agreed to join Delta Rising. He knows that he and the Rhode Island can do some good in the Delta Quadrant, and he's never hesitated to offer assistance to anyone who needs it. It's his duty to make sure that the mission to the Delta Quadrant succeeds, and he will rise to the challenge just like he's done his entire life. Like our other celebrity characters, making Garrett Wang as Harry Kim in Star Trek Online began with gathering plenty of reference. Also, like some of the other characters, we needed to make both younger and older versions, one directly from the Voyager series and one from the Stow's present timeline, which is about 30 years later. I'm glad that they're putting those kind of things and that kind of thought into the game to give us that younger version of Harry for maybe throwback videos or whatever that need a younger Harry, and then the now Harry 30 years later. Capturing the nuances of Mr. Wang's specific features was a challenge and required quite a few iterations and a great deal of feedback from multiple people, artists and non-artists alike. Getting new eyes on your work helps find what stands out and what they think may be missing. I guess they captured him pretty well here, for sure. And these are actual pictures of him. I guess they used for sampling. And there's an older version that he was in a future episode. I mean, an alternate timeline version of Voyager. This one looks a little weird, though. I gotta say, that looks a little weird. This one looks good, but I don't know. This one looks a little weird. The aged version of Harry Kim also had its own sets of challenges. The real-life Garrett Wang is quite fit and looks much younger than what we needed for the game. We looked to the final episode of Voyager as well as taking into account the general tendencies of the aging process. Obvious characteristics are usually gray hairs and more pronounced wrinkles. People also tend to put on more body weight, and though usually very subtle, noses and ears get bigger and lips get thinner. Bit by bit, we worked a careful balance of all the details to achieve both a Voyager era and an aged version of Harry Kim, while still retaining recognizable characteristics of Garrett Wang. As a bonus, we even had an honor to show off the in-game Harry Kim to Garrett Wang himself in the cryptic offices, leading to a hilarious Running Man dance-off between the CG and real-life Garretts. So there you go. Then that must be him there. Very cool, and so I'm glad that he's in the game. It definitely helps round out Delta Rising, another major cast member from Voyager. So this one looks all right. This aged version of him looks all right. I think he'll be instantly recognizable, especially once we hear his voice. So I'm glad he is in the game. Very good, very good. And our last tab today to look at is the making of Kobali Prime. In the last video, I mentioned the episode name, Ashes to Ashes, where the Kobali come from, and I had said that that was a Harry-centric episode. In a way, it really kind of was. I actually ended up rewatching that episode again the other night, just to remind myself who the Kobali are and all that. And the actual storyline is based on a character that we never actually saw in the series. And spoiler alert, by the way, I'm fixing to give you spoilers about the episode and what it's all about. A person ended up at some point in their voyage dying on an away mission, and this woman was put in a torpedo casing like they usually do and shot out into space, as that's how they bury their dead in the future and when you're in a starship. The Kobali race found her, she was human, found her floating in space and did their thing where they change a dead person, bring them back to life, and make them Kobali. Well, 4 years later is where the episode starts, and she is running back to Voyager because she wants to, I guess, she remembers her past. And so it said in the episode that most of the time when that process is done, the person loses the memory of their past or does not retain that memory of their past, so it makes becoming a Kobali easier. Well, she remembered her past on Voyager, and her and Harry were extremely close friends. Apparently they were in the academy together as well. So she came back to Voyager and tried to reintegrate with the crew, being a Kobali now. And then ultimately it turns out that she was changed so much that she went back to go live with her Kobali parents. She was just too Kobali at the time. Her past is gone. She even had forgotten who her real father was, and she was basically she was dead. The real person that she was before she became Kobali was dead. And so it was kind of sad, and Harry had a real attachment to her. They were really good friends, and he even liked her for more than that. And so that was a big thing for him. So it really was kind of a Harry Kim episode. It was a Harry Kim / her episode, but it was really just so we could see, the emotions of Harry Kim. But in that episode, they never showed the Kobali homeworld at all. All that we saw of the Kobali was she was in a Kobali shuttle, so we saw some computer screens of what the Kobali computers looked like. She was in a Kobali shuttle. She looked Kobali, and then her Kobali father was chasing after her, and so we saw him and a couple of other Kobali ships that were attacking Voyager, trying to get her back. So that is all that we saw of the Kobali, and that's all that we knew of the Kobali. And so Cryptic, what they really have done here is they've taken a species that was, again, just like the Voth, only in one episode and not even shown in depth. And they have completely created them from scratch, this whole Kobali Eprime homeworld. I mean, it was not in the show. It was not shown. We had no idea what it looked like. So this is all a Cryptic designed thing. This is them saying, here's the Kobali race. We got a blank slate. Let's create something from this, and that's what they did with the Kobali. So I recommend watching that episode if you want to see where the Kobali originated from. But you're really not going to find out a lot of info that's going to be relevant really to this because they never showed Kobali Eprime homeworld on the episode. All right, but obviously Kobali Eprime is in the game. It's going to be for Delta Rising. So this is a blog telling about the making of Kobali Eprime. So this should be interesting. Let's see what it says. The Kobali Adventure Zone offered our art team the chance to explore a species only briefly glimpsed in Voyager, the Kobali, and use the few clues to its culture to define a complete aesthetic for their world, from technology to architecture, characters, and clothing. I'm Brad Stoken, Art Director for Star Trek Online, and in this blog we'll give you a glimpse into the process we use to take the never-before-seen planet of Kobali Eprime from concept to reality. Our goal was to create an original artistic vision for the Kobali homeworld to visually represent the unique culture and beliefs of this species. Our first step was to gather research, and from that data to draw inspirations and references. The clues we discovered in our search were minor but instructive. We found the most unique feature of the Kobali to be their unusual and technologically advanced method of reproduction. The Kobali can only add to their population by obtaining deceased humanoids and reanimating them by heavily altering their DNA to match that of the Kobali. Interestingly, the transformation process is not merely physical. The Kobali extensively educate the newly reanimated over a long period prior to their introduction into society for adaptation and acclimation to their culture and language. The Kobali show reverence and respect for the deceased that are repurposed, as well as for strong familiar bonds with their new offspring. From this, we can infer that new life is precious to the Kobali, and so is the preservation of their culture and tradition. We would infer that the Kobali are devout and respectful of life. As it is so rare for them to receive a new member of their populace, their method of reproduction is solemnly observed and treated almost as reincarnation. We imagine the long months of training and instruction given to new recruits take place in almost monastic fashion, utilizing meditation and focused study in a quiet, humble environment. Finally, we observed that the Kobali were culturally unassuming. Their clothes were not gaudy, and their food was a modest gray paste. Physiologically, they did not show much evidence of indulging in sensual pleasures like food or fashion. Using these references, we began to build a visual language to communicate these qualities. Aesthetic, temple, monastic, reverent, religious, advanced technology. First, we focused on the shape language of their architecture. It would imply near religious reverence for both death and life. For this, we took inspiration from designs of temples and monasteries. Finally, simple script depicted in unique glyphs would remind the Kobali of their traditions, the preciousness of life, and the value of family. Also, the simple and austere shapes should reveal in their details a high-technology society. Thus, hints of advanced technology were applied sparingly to our building designs. We also drew inspiration from Kobali ships, which incorporated a broad base with tall triangular or trapezoidal shapes. We decided the Kobali city would radiate outward from the central, most important building, both a temple of sorts and the location of their genetic reincarnation technology. This informed our eventual map layout. Finally, we explored materials, colors, props, and the levels of technological integration in a color concept. Kobali costumes. From our research, traditional Kobali civilian clothing seemed rather plain and unassuming, not unlike the gray paste the Kobali consume as their typical food. Coupled with our inference that chief among the Kobali values were reverence and respect, we designed their civilian clothing accordingly. We imagined the rare Kobali soldier might appear to our eyes as something akin to a warrior monk. Their martial tradition might grow natural from the meditation forms and physical and mental disciplines intrinsic to the acclamation of newly resurrected members into Kobali society. We decided their armor establishments would appear not unlike traditional lamellar plates worn over clothing, creating an almost ceremonial look. We imagined Kobali warriors would favor strike, hard, and withdraw tactics over pitched battle. Thus, their appearance and equipment should imply mobility and ruling out bulkier or heavier armor. We theorized the Kobali would instead employ force field technology for their protection. I hope this means we get monk clothing. I would love to have a monk clothing. Meanwhile, a powerful invading species, the Vaudouar, have begun a planetary invasion on Kobol Eprime. For reasons not yet known, they have foregone an orbital bombardment of the city, instead digging in with trenches, turrets, and bunkers to mount a furious frontal assault. That is strange. We chose for the Vaudouar a blunt and brutal style to communicate their blitzkrieg way of war. We implied their impending threat with an extensive network of fortifications topped off by the domineering presence of a landed Vaudouar frigate atop the cliffs, serving as their command post. With the story behind both the Kobali and Vaudouar designs in mind, let's take a closer look at how we brought the ideas and concepts into reality. Hello, Captains. Jeff LCDR Miller here, giving you a short breakdown of the construction of the Kobali Adventure Zone. The first thing to note is that the entire environment team had some sort of hand in creating the art for this zone. A normal featured episode or special task force usually has one main environment artist, and sometimes a second will jump on after the mission or STF is complete, and to do final polish tasks and get that mission to the last 10% of greatness. This zone worked a bit differently this time around, based on goals we all wanted to achieve: prop density, high quality art, and map size. Working with our designer in the very early design stages, we made a list of all the possible props the entire map would need, ranging from Kobali city props to Kobali and Vaudouar battlefront props, as well as all planetary props such as bushes, trees, grass, and rocks. As you can imagine, this list grew rapidly. Once this list was complete, I still had some time before the rest of the art team got on board to help out. I took that list into the white box stage. White box means very basic, untextured props that are usually just white boxes in the size and footprints of the final versions. During this white box stage, my task consisted of terrain painting, very early white box, and art placement, and while working with the designer to make sure we had the right areas for missions and combat. Once the rest of the environment team got on board, the map really started to take shape. One of the big things we wanted to make sure was implemented was a progression of visual change as the players play throughout the story. This meant making different zones within the map that felt totally different from one another. From early on, we knew we wanted 4 main areas: the Kobali City Hub, Trenches, Mountainside, and the Summit. We hit that list perfectly and even added a few more while this map was being created. Outskirts and a forest area were added naturally as the map evolved. The outskirts are the first area just outside the city gate. I thought the idea of fighting between buildings and using these structures as cover, just as so many battles were fought in our own real life of history, such as World War II, was something that added a different feel than running around in the trenches. The forest just felt right. It was the untouched area of the map, a glimpse of what the planet was like before the massive Vaudoir advance on the Kobali. It's a perfect transition from the trenches up into the hills area. When everything is said and done, the art team did some amazing things with this zone. I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I hope you will be too. See you in game. Miller signing off. So that is a very, very thorough rundown of designing Kobol Eprime and this new adventure zone that we're going to have. And I find it interesting that they used the Kobali as their main focus as an adventure zone city in Delta Rising. Obviously, the new Romulan homeworld made a lot of sense in New Romulus, right? That one made a lot of sense. That was I know they spent a lot of time making that adventure zone. That was the first of its kind, by the way, the New Romulus Adventure Zone. So that made sense. Romulans, that made sense. But picking a race of aliens out of Voyager that was only seen in one episode and making this entire fuss about it, I don't know how that's going to play out with gamers yet, because the Kobali were kind of, a who cared kind of species when you watch the Voyager series. If you watch the Voyager series from start to finish, you end up forgetting the Kobali ever existed. They were not a thing, right? They were just not an important part of Voyager. Yet, Delta Rising and Star Trek Online has made a huge deal out of the Kobali. They've made the Kobali a central focus with this adventure zone, going to Kobol Eprime and doing all this. Now, I am glad that they have put focus on the Vaudoir. I think when you're left after watching Voyager, the Vaudoir are a race that could have retaken over the Delta Quadrant. They are that kind of species, and that's how the episode ended, was like, oh my gosh, I believe the episode was actually called Dragon's Teeth. We let the dragon out of the cage, so to speak. This enemy that had once had great control of the Delta Quadrant is out once again, and they're going to do it all over again, and it's our fault. So the Vaudoir make a lot of sense. The Kobali, I'm not sure they make a lot of sense. If it were me, I think that... What race would I have chosen? I think I would have chosen... the Krenim. That's right, the Krenim. That's who I would have used. Instead of a Kobali Adventure Zone, imagine a Krenim Adventure Zone. Imagine, because that episode with the Krenim, by the way, the Krenim are the people, or that crazy guy who created this ship that could alter time by changing events in history, basically by moving a moon from all of history, or destroying a moon that never, so it never existed in history, completely changes the present that you're in. But they're immune to those changes because they're out of phase with time, or at least the ship was. They can't time travel. They don't time travel, but they manipulate time, which was a really cool concept when we saw the episode. That was the whole year of Voyager, few episodes. I forget if it was 2 or 3 episodes, but it was called The Year of Hell for Voyager. Very, very, very good story arc there. And the Krenim have a lot of potential. The episode was left that, he ended up getting his wife back, and then at the end, you saw him working on the computer, and he was working on those algorithms that could create that time manipulation. So it was like, oh, he's going to do it eventually. So I think exploring the Krenim would have been something that I know a lot of fans of Voyager would have loved to have seen. And a lot of people want one of those Krenim time ships. I mean, they're not really a time ship. They don't travel through time. So I don't know what use that would be. But it would, the Krenim, I think, would be a more interesting species to build upon than the Kobali. And that's what I want you guys to leave me comments for in the comments section. As you can see, this whole Kobali homeworld and this whole Kobali Adventure Zone is a huge part of Delta Rising. So, did Cryptic make the right choice? That's what I want to hear from you guys. Did Cryptic make the right choice with the Kobali? Is that a race you wanted to see? Are you excited about the Kobali Adventure Zone? And then in addition to that, if it wasn't the Kobali, what race would you like to have seen expanded on at with this kind of level of work in Delta Rising? What other race in the Delta Quadrant would you have liked to see more of? That's what I want to hear. So definitely once this comes out here in the next few days, I will definitely, be looking at the entire Adventure Zone. I'll do a video just on the Adventure Zone. I'll look at all the different areas. I'll see what's there and see what we can do. But yeah, I will look at it for sure, because we got to find out what's there and what we can do with it. But apparently that's what we're getting. And they did spend a lot of time on it. My question is, was that the right species for that time? was that the right one? I'm not sure yet. They haven't sold me on it quite yet, because I just didn't find the Kobali interesting. But we will see, I suppose. I am looking forward to the VOD War. That'll be fun. Okay, guys, that's all I've got for this week. There might be something more later today. If there is, I'll just do another news update right before Delta Rising launches on Monday. I'll do that if there is anything else to mention. So I do appreciate everybody watching. Thank you for being a part of these news updates. And we are ever so close to Delta Rising. I'm very excited. I'm going to have a busy week tomorrow. I'm going to have a busy week next week. That is for sure. Okay, thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.